This is Liz Colburn, host of The Morning Uplift. Thank you for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Ryan Pierce, host of Completely Serious here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, where we talk about sports and have fun with great guests. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Completely Serious. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
The latest headlines.
The Houston Astros, the defending World Series champions, got better adding Garrett Cole.
The insightful interviews.
Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible. With how much emphasis is put on the position, yet how many over the last couple of years we've had questions. Why do we put such an emphasis on drafting a quarterback number one overall?
The bottom line is there's not enough good quarterbacks to go around. And I think with the new CBA, it's really a low-risk gamble now. If you look at the playoff teams, the common denominator, good quarterback play.
The hottest takes.
I think the guy to blame is the one guy who hasn't left yet. I think Russell Westbrook is one of the bigger problems in Oklahoma City.
Can all be found on Press Row. Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network. Here's your host.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
Christian Heimall.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back on Press Row. Christian Heimall here with you, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network. So excited to be with you guys here this week after Thanksgiving. A lot to go on as we have Championship Saturday set in just a couple of days here on the college football landscape. Major League Baseball news as well, and of course, the NFL with some headlines coming out this week also. Don't forget to check out the show on Facebook, Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. You can find the show on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM, or email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com, and be part of Press Row. Join us right here. You got a seat right next to me. It's really easy. You can just go right there. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, and just plop yourself right down next to me here on Press Row. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker.com, and of course, thephmedia.com. So a lot to get to here on the show today, but I want to start with the match, Tiger versus Phil, because, listen, there was a lot that was good about last Friday. There was a lot that was bad and needs to be changed. It's really simple. A little tweak can go a long way. And we'll touch on this also with college football because I have my issues there and you guys know about this. But when you look at what we saw on Friday, you saw two of the biggest golfers of the last 25 years going head-to-head like we've always wanted to see. Was it too late? Yes. Do we wish this was 10 years ago? Yes. We wish it was, same with Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell this past weekend. That should have happened 10 years ago. We didn't need to see that, and it was embarrassing for the Iceman. But what was amazing about this, and the reason why it was good to have now, is because at this point in their careers, Tiger and Phil understand, and it's more Tiger. Phil's kind of always understood this, but Tiger's finally gotten it through his head this year that what he means to the game of golf, to the sport, is more than what the sport means to him. Tiger understands that when he's out there, when he's competing, when he's there for a potential tournament championship, it's one of the best things for golf. And now he's in a position where he can actually help with that because mentally he understands that it is no longer his duty to dominate the game. It is his duty to grow the game. That being said, this was one of those things. And listen, I did pay the $20 beforehand. So I think I got my money's worth. I personally believe that. I believe it. Because here's the thing. Now that Tiger 10 years ago would have never gone for this because that was his mentality. His mentality wasn't, why should I help golf? I'm just going to dominate. Why should I bring these other people to relevance when I'm dominating this game? Now that he's at this point in his career where he doesn't need to dominate, I think he's really kind of matured over the last 3-4 years between the injuries, between, losing his swing to this comeback that he had in 2018 and being one of the top 50 golfers in the world again. I think he's matured to a point now where he understands that he's in a position to help grow the game, and he should do that. Phil Mickelson has always been that kind of guy. He's always been the person to kind of reach out and do more for the game, try to grow the game in a bigger way. Tiger has always been the quiet, the subdued, I'm just going to mentally dominate you on a golf course because I'm so intimidating type person. Now, he's the kind of guy who, when it's time to compete, don't get me wrong, he locks in, but he understands that his role in golf now is to more help grow the game. So I think it was great, and the only reason that it could happen now is because Tiger's reached that point. That being said, so again, I thought it was good for golf. More than anything else. It wasn't good golf. Don't get me. The first 15, 16 holes were terrible. But it was fun to see Tiger in a situation that we've never seen him before. We've never seen him mic'd up for an entire round. We've never seen him. He's been known throughout his career as one of those guys who does not talk to the people that he's paired with. He doesn't do it. And to see him talk with Phil, to see him kind of joke and try to bait Phil into some of those side bets, it was fun. And it made you think. It made you wonder, what if we had guys who were like this normally? What if we had a Jordan Spieth, a Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Bubba Watson, Jason Day, Jason Duffner? What if we had those guys, Rory McIlroy, who were there, young guys who are kind of in their prime right now, so it can be competitive golf, but it can also be fun. That was what was great about this, was we saw what it could be. And so things need to change, obviously. Number one, it needs to be free. It should not be a pay-per-view event. Number two, I would love to see these guys actually put their own money up. The fact that Tiger and Phil, the $9 million they were competing for was all from the sponsors. They weren't really risking anything. They were donating money to charity, which is great. Don't get me wrong. That's awesome. And they should have been doing that anyway. But the money the sponsors put up shouldn't have been the purse money. I think you make it more fun and have it be their own money. I mean, that's what, when you go out with your own buddies and you're playing golf, that's what you're betting on, your own money. You're not betting money from, the sponsors of the golf course. You're not doing that. So I think that's a really good opportunity there for golf. Don't have it be free, or don't charge it and have it be a pay-per-view. Get some of these younger guys, keep them mic'd up. It was awesome. But I don't need all the commentary. Maybe I need one guy, maybe Dan Hicks, maybe Ernie Johnson, just one guy going back and forth a little bit, maybe one commentator. I didn't need Charles Barkley. I didn't need Sam Jackson. Going back to the tweets was a lot of fun. Turner did an okay job from a broadcast standpoint. It wasn't competitive golf until the last 6-7 holes when it went to 22 holes. But you get younger guys. You get guys who have that kind of personality naturally, and it's not Tiger 10 years past his prime who realizes what his role is now in golf. It's a lot different, and it can be a lot of fun. I think the match was good for golf, but there are things that need to be changed. It needs to be changed, just tweaked a little bit, but it can be a lot of fun, and I thought it was. I enjoyed it. I was thoroughly entertained, not by the golf, but by the spectacle of it and what it could potentially be. And I hope they continue to do it. I hope it's not pay-per-view. I hope it's like the Super Bowl. It's something we look forward to. Maybe it is the Friday after Thanksgiving every single year. I would love to see that. Make it more competitive with the guys putting up their own money. It doesn't have to be $9 million, but make it $1 million. Make it $2 million. And just see what happens. It'd be a lot of fun. So I hope it continues. Whether you agree with me or not, I don't know. Let me know. Head to our Facebook page, Press Row by Public House Media. Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. You can find me on Twitter as well, at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimmall. And let me know. So plenty more to talk about here on Press Row. We'll get into the college football landscape, NFL news, Major League Baseball as well. Your listener questions towards the end of the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. You're on Press Row. Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.
Listen to every episode and get the latest shows sent right to you. Subscribe to Press Row on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, and Stitcher.com. Or visit us online at www.thephmedia.com.
This is Bryce Burge, host of Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. After this episode, come join us on a trip around the soccer world as we discuss club and country every Tuesday. Stamp your soccer passport by subscribing on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your Public House Media podcasts. And thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
Welcome back on Press Row. Christian Heimall here with you on this Thursday, November 28th, 2018, after a enjoyable Thanksgiving holiday where, again, I'll admit to it, I don't care. I'm one of the ones who paid $20 to watch Tiger and Phil play golf, although I enjoyed it, and I told you about that in the first segment. It does need some tweaking, but thoroughly enjoyed it. Now we can focus on the more important things I understand, NFL and college football. To help us talk about it all, good friend of the show, good friend of mine personally, CBS Local Sports Zone, Ryan Mayer. Ryan, buddy, good to have you back.
Hey, good to be on again, Christian. Good to talk to you as always.
So, real quick, because you and I, we've known each other for a while, and I know that we used to talk golf a lot, a decade ago back when Tiger and Phil were relevant. But after you saw everything, I don't know if you watched, but after you saw everything, what did you think?
I did.
Okay, so what did you think of the match then?
It brought back some nostalgia, I got to be honest. And I think the coolest part for me actually was seeing Mickelson be like, you know what, I don't want to win like that. Let's go play again. That actually was probably my favorite moment of the entire thing. I mean, it's one of those things where it's almost like aging boxers to a certain extent. Like it's cool to see them out there and in the ring again, or in this case on the golf course. But at the same time, you're a little bit sad because it's not the same height of their powers that they once were. But at the same time, to see that competitive spirit, especially at the tail end, where Phil's just like, nah, we're not ending it this way.
I'm winning on my shot, not on your mess. Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly.
And my argument with it was this could not have happened 10 years ago because Tiger's mentality was different then. I think now he understands his role is to grow the game, not dominate the game.
Absolutely. I would definitely agree with that assessment. I mean, his mindset 10 years ago, heck, even sooner than that, I'd say even as much as, 6, maybe even 5 years ago, he was still locked into that, I have to be the top dog in this game. I'm always going to be dominating this. I don't want to talk to anybody on the course. I'm not friends with any of you people. I'm here to win championships, cash the check, and go home, and then win more championships. Right. So, this is something that definitely couldn't have happened then. But I think all that he's been through, especially recently with the surgeries, not knowing if he was going to come back to the game of golf, kind of got him to the point in life that I think we all reach at some point where it's just, you know what, I'm really just happy to be here right now. And this is awesome. Let's have some fun. You see him smiling, even during tournaments now, you see him smiling and joking with guys. And that's really cool to see because I'll be honest, I didn't even know he had that in his personality from everything that I've read on his background and everything I've read about him growing up. I didn't realize he had that side to him. So it's cool to see that side of Tiger come out, even in a setting where, he's competing against an old rival.
He's Ryan Mayer, CBS Local Sports. All right, let's get to what we were really going to have you on for the show about, and that is football. We'll talk college first. Championship Saturday coming up this weekend. Kind of boring because realistically the only thing that matters is, Ohio State and Oklahoma. Realistically, because let's be honest, if Georgia somehow beats Alabama, both of those teams are still going to the football playoff.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. I think the only just wild scenario, and this is just coming well out of the realm of impossibility at this point, but you're talking about if Georgia somehow beats Alabama, if Oklahoma loses to Texas, and Northwestern beats Ohio State, then we have a little bit of fun, maybe. But at that point, outside of that, there's not really much in terms of interest. Now, I do think the Georgia-Alabama game is interesting, if only because of what we saw last year in the national title game. I know Georgia hasn't been the same team this year. Jake Fromm at times has looked not as confident a player as he was last year. I know that's a very kind of touch and feely kind of answer, but it seems like the same decisiveness that he played with last season and taking over from Jacob Eason, and that he had by the end of the year in that matchup with Oklahoma and then in the title game against Alabama, just wasn't there at times. And I don't know if that was because he had Justin Fields barking down his back throughout the entire year, because, that's exactly how he won the job. He came in and basically Wally pipped Jacob Eason, and he didn't want the same thing to happen to him with Justin Fields. So, I know it hasn't been the same Georgia team, but they're still a very high caliber, high talent team. They can definitely play with Alabama. The biggest question is going to be whether they can, once they're down in the red zone, score. That's been their biggest issue all season. You've seen it time and time again.
Let me throw this scenario out there to really kind of make things interesting. Alabama, beats Georgia like we expect them to. Northwestern and Texas each have 2 touchdown wins over Oklahoma and Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan or UCF? Which one do you go with there? Or does it not matter and it's Ohio State because they have a better resume?
Yeah, you're asking me a question that I have 2 answers for, because one is with my head and one is with my heart. My heart says put UCF in the playoffs so we can finally see a group of 5 team do and see what they can do against the rest of these big dogs. But the biggest problem that you have there, and the biggest thing that the committee is going to look at, is they're not the same team now. The committee, one of the things is they look at the team, injuries included, at that point in time. It's very similar in the way that the college basketball committee does. So they're looking at UCF right now. This is not the same team that won 12 games during the course of the regular season, and if they beat Memphis this weekend, 13 during the course of this year, because they have a different quarterback. Mackenzie Milton was the biggest part of that team, especially this year, because its defense hasn't been as good after the loss of Mike Hughes and Shaquem Griffin. So you're looking at a UCF team that maybe had they had Mackenzie Milton, they can make things fun and interesting in a playoff setting. I have nothing against the freshman in Mac. I just don't think that he could do that. So as much as my heart would say, hey, put UCF in, I don't want to see them get in there and get crushed, because then we're never going to see it again.
Is that the reason? Like, do you think? I mean, Mackenzie Milton, his injury, UCF only goes up to 8 in the college football playoff poll this week. Ohio State, meanwhile, jumps up to 6. Is Mackenzie Milton's injury the reason for that, or are they really placing that much stock in the fact that Ohio State completely embarrassed the entire state of Michigan on Saturday?
I think the honest answer is a little bit of both, honestly, because what Ohio State did to Michigan was impressive. That is a Buckeyes team that we have not seen all season. And I can say that having seen them in person when they went to Happy Valley and played a 1-point game against a Penn State team that, I'll be honest, is not as good as it was last season. So you see some of those very close wins. You see the 20-some-odd point loss to Purdue for Ohio State, and you're thinking, why were we so high on this team coming into the season?
Yeah.
And then they come out last weekend and blow the doors off of Michigan. Just look unstoppable in every facet of the game, at least offensively. Defensively, they still have plenty of issues. They give up a ton of big plays, but I think that at this point in time is just part of the larger thing with college football. You're not going to get as many dominant defenses like you have had in previous years with Alabama, where, they're letting opponents score 9 points a game.
Right.
Defenses are going to have lapses, but the thing I was most impressed by with Ohio State last weekend was their ability to just carve up a Michigan defense that had been doing that to every opponent, and it didn't matter the quarterback. And this isn't a particularly mobile quarterback that you think would be able to extend plays or get outside the pocket or anything along those lines. Haskins just picked them apart in man coverage time and again in crossing routes to the point where it looked like Michigan hadn't even watched film on Ohio State during the course of the week. I know they did, obviously, but it looked so easy at times that you sat there thinking, where are the adjustments? Did you guys not prepare for any of this? But yeah, it's. I think even in that scenario, you're looking at you're probably going to end up looking at a Ohio State team that gets in just because of the fact that you can't put Michigan in with what Ohio State did to them. You just can't, and you at the same time can't put UCF in because Mackenzie Milton was the heart and soul of that team and is the heart and soul of that team. And, it was horrible to watch that kid go down on Friday night because you're just sitting there thinking, man, like he was having such a tremendous senior season. He had lit up his entire junior season, and now he's got a long road back to recovery. And not only that, I mean, any kind of chance that they may have had, even in a dream world scenario, I think is gone.
A little short on time, and I do want to get to some NFL stuff, but real quick, at what point do we get to an expanded playoff, whether it be 8, 12, whatever it is?
When's the TV deal up? Because that's probably the next time that you're going to be able to renegotiate this thing. Look, they're locked in likely for the length of this contract. I don't think it changes any time before the contract is up. That said, they have never been known to turn down more money. So if a 8-team playoff is going to bring them more money and more fan interest, which, yeah, it probably would, they will likely go to that eventually. But I don't think it's before the end of the current TV deal that ESPN paid a couple $2 billion for.
He's Ryan Mayer, CBS Local Sports, joining us here on Press Row. Get to some NFL stuff real quick. I mean, the Texans are playing incredibly well right now and just look like to be one of the darlings in an AFC that we once thought was merely the Chiefs and the Patriots, and now it seems that some people are starting to come back to the pack a little bit. You actually, you had a conversation there with Boomer Esiason about the Broncos. What's interesting about this Broncos team that obviously their schedule sets up well, but makes them competitive in this AFC?
Well, obviously the schedule, as you said, sets up really well. Their next 4 games come against some of the dregs of the league this year and also from many years prior in terms of the Cleveland Browns. Although the Browns have been playing better as of late, shouts to Baker Mayfield. But the schedule, aside from the schedule setting up so well, the thing that they've been doing really well over the past couple of games is not turning the ball over and forcing their opponent into turnovers. Now, Case Keenum, we know what this guy is at this point in time, right? He is a very streaky type of quarterback. He can either go on runs where he's not turning the ball over and getting those perfect throws, or he's turning the ball over a bunch, which is what we've seen from him largely this season in Denver. Right now, in the last 2 games, it seems like he's been able to stay away from that and make some better throws and make some better decisions with the ball. And you're seeing the results in 2 games against the Chargers and Steelers. Now, the one thing that I would caution, and Boomer said it as well, is they gave up over 500 yards still to the Steelers. Yeah. So the defense isn't completely what it was in years past. And whether they're able to continue giving up 500 yards, even in an NFL that is more wide open than it has been in years past, and still win, I don't know. But as we said, the schedule sets up very nicely at the Bengals, at the 49ers, home for the Browns, at the Raiders before they end up having to face the Chargers in Week 17. So it doesn't get much more favorable than that if you're Vance Joseph and the Denver Broncos.
I'll leave you with this simply because I know that this is it's a question that the answer we cannot sum up very quickly with. So I'll just make it hard on you at the very end. Reuben Foster.
Of course, always.
Reuben Foster, multiple domestic violence charges where there is clear evidence against him. Spends less than 24 hours on the waiver wire. Yet Colin Kaepernick, who has done nothing of any violence, struggles to even get a tryout with a team. Why is that?
I wish there was a less cynical answer than the fact that it looks pretty clear that the NFL is not going to come anywhere near Colin Kaepernick due to everything that has gone on with that entire situation from the get-go. And it's not, at this point, it's not even about the protest, because we've seen Eric Reed get signed by the Carolina Panthers this year. It's not even about that anymore. It is morphed into something much larger than that, to the point where these teams just refuse to look at him. And I could not for the life of me tell you why, when, as you said, you're looking at a team in the Washington Redskins that immediately go and claim Reuben Foster off of waivers. The only thing that I can possibly think of as a reason for why, and I can't say with certainty by any stretch of the imagination that this is the reason, is because they know that if Colin Kaepernick gets signed, that is handing ammunition to the one person that has continually harped on that situation, the current president of the United States. So I wish that I could say that I believed in the NFL owners more than I do. I don't, just simply because of the fact that we've seen no evidence to believe that they are treating this in a way that they're actually evaluating him on his merits. Yes, he hasn't played football in the last 2 years. You also can't tell me that a guy in Colt McCoy that hasn't thrown a football in 2 years is better than him. You can't tell me that Tom Savage, who continuously gets cut year in, year out, who just got another job with the Cincinnati Bengals, is better than him. So, it's one of those continuous situations that you just kind of shake your head at and go, I guess his career is done through no fault of his own, simply because he took a stand for something that he believes is absolutely right. And in the end, when we look back on it in history, yeah, he's likely on the right side of history in this, as opposed to what the NFL has done here in not bringing him back into the league.
He's Ryan Mayer, CBS Local Sports. As always, we appreciate the time, pal. Thanks a lot.
No problem, Christian. Anytime.
That's Ryan Mayer, CBS Local Sports. We'll be back in a little bit to wrap things up here. You're on Press Row, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Want to be part of the show? Go to Facebook and search Press Row Podcast Public House Media, or find us on Twitter and Instagram at Press Row PHM. You can also email the program, pressrowphm@gmail.com. This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media. This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
Welcome back on Press Row. Close up shop here on this Thursday, November 29th. Christian Heimall here with you. Broadcast as part of the Public House Media Network. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends and family. Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spreaker.com, and of course, thephmedia.com. Big thanks to Ryan Mayer for jumping on with us last minute there. And look, listen, the Kaepernick thing I bring up simply because it is becoming, do I think he's talented enough to be in the NFL? Probably not. But when Blake Bortles, when Tom Savage, when even Case Keenum, as well as he has performed, the Giants thinking about going with Alex Tanney instead of Kyle Lauletta, the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills, all these teams have issues at their quarterback position, and Colin Kaepernick doesn't even get a phone call. Yet someone who has been charged multiple times with domestic violence, and there is evidence against him of domestic violence. Adrian Peterson was suspended a year because of child abuse. Greg Hardy and his domestic violence. It becomes clear and indisputable evidence that the NFL is colluding against Colin Kaepernick. I have never been more convinced of it than I am now after Reuben Foster is allowed to still be in this league. That's the part that is strange to me. Whether Kaepernick is talented enough or not, they can debate that. What you cannot debate is the fact that this is a person who has never once been charged with a crime, yet other people who have been tried, convicted, suspended because of physical violence, violent crimes, are still allowed to be in the NFL. It is obvious that Roger Goodell and the owners are putting sponsorship dollars over virtues, over morals. And call me naive, but at some point, you have to make a stand and say, you know what? The money is nice, but we've got a conscience to think about. We've got a fan base to think about. We've got a product that we have to be proud to put on the field. And you can't tell me that Roger Goodell, maybe he does, maybe he sits in his office on Park Avenue and he's proud of the fact that there are multiple people in the NFL who have been convicted, who have been charged with violent crimes. Maybe he is proud of that, but that's the product he allows to be put on the field. Meanwhile, all Colin Kaepernick did was stand up for something he believed in. Take a stand against something he believed in. So, get to your listener questions as we do every single week here on Press Row. Facebook, Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. Instagram, Twitter handle is at PressRowPHM. Brandon on Facebook, Demarius Randall hands an intercepted ball to Hugh Jackson. Baker Mayfield sounds off about him being fake and gives him a, quote, business handshake after the game. Are the Browns justified in taunting and picking at their former coach, or is this just immature? I don't know if it's immature. I don't know if it's justified. I know I love it. I think it's great. This is stuff that, listen, Hugh Jackson did not deserve to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Nothing wrong with that. He got fired. He lost his job. He went to a rival, and I think one of the things that the NFL is missing is they're missing some kind of emotion. There is no, and baseball was missing it for a while too, and they still kind of are. When you look at the Red Sox, Yankees, there's not that emotion attached to these games. That's why when you see a bat flip, it is kind of awesome. But we don't see that in professional sports anymore. There's a lot of respect, and don't get me wrong. You can be respectful, but at the same time, once the whistle blows, all hell can break loose as long as it's within the confines and the rules of the game. So I love what the Browns did. Their coach went to a rival team and probably was going to try to tell secrets and talk bad about them and try to help their rival win. And the Browns went, you know what? No, we're going to show you that, you didn't deserve to be here. There's a reason for that, and we're going to own you for it. And they did. I love what the Browns did. Was it immature? Probably. Were they justified? Most likely not. But I absolutely loved it. I thought it was awesome. All right, let's see. Kelly in Georgia. Josh Donaldson and Brian McCann signing for the Braves. Is this a good thing for them? I think the question, here's the thing. With the Browns, with the Braves, what's really interesting about this is the fact that now when you bring the Braves in here and you get Josh Donaldson to play third, the real question becomes, what do they do with Johan Camargo? Can they move him to shortstop? If they do, that puts them tremendously at a great spot, because now what you have is you have Ozzie Albies at second, you have Freddie Freeman at first, Camargo, who is tremendously defensively at short, and Josh Donaldson at third, and that lineup is incredible with Ronald Acuna Jr. In there as well. This is a Braves team that was ahead of the curve this past year. I don't know if Donaldson puts them over the top. I don't like his salary. I don't like his contract, but I think what he does is he makes that lineup so difficult to get through, especially when you re-sign Brian McCann. You got a veteran guy there, a couple veterans now, and a guy in Donaldson who really can just be, Josh Donaldson and hit home runs and be a part of the middle of that lineup that's going to help this Braves team get to a lot of places. The one thing that I would watch out with Josh Donaldson is, what does this do to Manny Machado? Because 1 year, $23 million, I think is overpaying Josh Donaldson. So what does that do to the Manny Machado market? Does that up it? Does it make things a little bit difficult for Machado to get a multi-year deal now with that 5, 6, 7, 10-year deal worth $23 million a year, worth $30 million a year? I don't know. But that's one of the things that I would really kind of watch out for here with regards to the Josh Donaldson deal. All right, last one. Kyle in Pennsylvania. Dana White called out and trashed Tito Ortiz for the Chuck Liddell fight. Should he have? Absolutely. He should. Oh, my. This was embarrassing. I'm sorry, but what happened this past weekend was just terrible. And Dana White absolutely should have blasted Oscar De La Hoya for what happened. Chuck Liddell looked unmatched. It was brutal. 8-year retirement, faced his old rival, Tito Ortiz, and got destroyed in the final minute of the opening round. Liddell's 48, and truthfully, he did not look like he even deserved to be in the arena, let alone the state of California for that fight. He looked overmatched. He looked terrible in that one. And realistically, that the fact that he was allowed in there kind of shows that Oscar De La Hoya, who was promoting this, should probably stick to boxing. He doesn't need to go into the MMA game just yet, because that was strictly about the money grab, trying to sell tickets, and it really disappointed a lot of people. So I can't say I'm surprised by it, and I have to believe that it certainly was warranted there by Dana White to blast Oscar De La Hoya. So difficult one to watch, especially for the Iceman. His career's got to be, he should never even think about it again. To come out of retirement and to lose that badly, that spectacularly, that was scary. And that was unfortunate to see, especially for a legend who helped grow mixed martial arts and grow the UFC to what it is. All right, big thanks to you guys for sending in your questions. As always, you can do that every single week. Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. PressRowPHM@gmail.com. That's the email. Press Row Podcast by Public House Media on Facebook as well. Find me on Twitter if you want, at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimall. Big thanks to Ryan Mayer, CBS Local Sports, for joining us here on the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Appreciate you guys tuning in as you do each and every week on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, and more. Until next week, I'm Chris Heimall. We'll see you on Press Row.